Hello, students, and welcome back to Mr. Armstrong Teaches. I am Mr. Armstrong, and today I'm going to teach you how to play a game. I call it Draw a Monster. Let's take a look at some reasons why it works. Okay, here's the list. There's probably more. Put them down in the comments if you come up with any. Number 1, it's fun and silly. It's fun in a silly way. Fun is the most important thing about any game, and this game is fun. It's also very creative. It's a creative type of game. It stimulates your creativity. Fun, creative, great, start. It's also very forgiving. What do I mean by that? I mean that it's very easy. It's very accessible. Anyone can do it. There's really no way to fail. Monsters are easy to draw because they can look like whatever we want them to look like. They can look like anything. No pressure. And then finally, I use this in the classroom a lot to practice other skills. It's kind of a nice springboard. It's a fun way to get to other types of things that we might be working on. Things like grammar practice or story practice, things like that. We'll get to that once we get to some variations. But first, let's get to the game. How do you play? What are the rules? Let's get to the bottom of this. As I said before, this game is easy. It's very accessible. Anyone can do it. The first thing you have to do is draw a shape. Now you can draw your own shape if you're by yourself, or if you want to play this game with friends, which is way more fun, you can get them to draw you a shape. You draw them a shape in exchange, or you can do this in a whole classroom where you pass them all around. There's lots of different ways to do it, but simply to get started, all you have to do is draw a shape, like this. This is a shape, a weird little shape. It isn't a shape that has like a name, like a square or a triangle or anything like that. It's just kind of a random line. With this one, I basically drew a shape without lifting the pen off of the page. So this is step 1. All you have to do is draw a shape. That part's easy. Part 2, also very easy. Part 2 is turn it into a monster. So all you're going to do is take that shape, or take the shape that your friend drew for you or that your classmate drew for you, and you're gonna keep adding to that drawing. You're gonna turn that shape into a monster. So the shape we had before looked like this, and now I'm just gonna add some things and turn this shape into a monster, like this. Haha, very silly. Very cute. A monster. This one was a pretty quick one for the purposes of this exercise. I added a few little details, and now we have a monster. Is it a monster that's ever existed before? I don't think so. Maybe. Otherwise, it's brand new. That's the beauty of monsters. They can look like whatever you want them to look like. This is what this monster looks like. Let's look at another one real quick. Let's say I started with this shape. This shape's a little more normal. It's kind of a triangle, but it's got like a spiral thing going on. But still, random shape I drew without lifting my pen off the page. That part's not required, but it could be if you want. And so, if I had this shape and wanted to turn it to a monster, it might look like this. A monster, okay? And like I said, there's no wrong way to do it, except maybe to not do it at all. There are infinite ways that you can turn any shape into a monster. And the forgiving part is, like, who cares what it looks like? You could do the same shape multiple times. Sometimes I'll photocopy a shape and see how many different monsters I can turn it into. There's lots of ways to do it. Here's some more examples. Here's 3 different shapes, and maybe look at them for a little bit. Think about how you would turn them into monsters. Do you see anything starting to pop out at you? What could this monster look like? What does it look like in your mind's eye? Does it look anything like this? These are the monsters that I came up with. These are a little more involved, a little more detailed, right? But there's really no limit to how much detail you could add to these. You could also start out with more complex shapes. This shape, for example, is a little more involved, right? It could also get way more complex than this if you really wanted to go for it. This shape, I'm going to rotate it a little bit in the final product, but this shape I turned into a slightly more complex monster. Look at that. It's a monster with a helmet. Weird. Are there other ways that I could have turned that shape into a monster? Absolutely. There's an infinite number of ways. This is the way that I ended up with. And that's pretty much the basics of the game. It's not a competition, which is one of the reasons why I like it. Anyone can play. Anyone can have a good time with this. In the classroom, it's great. Students always love to share the monsters that they created. It's a collaborative opportunity also. A lot of fun. And as promised, there are some variations that you can do to add even more richness and quality to this exercise. Let's take a look at some of those. Okay, so these variations are mostly if you're working in a group, but I suppose you you could do them on your own also, but I use these in the classroom a lot for these purposes, some variations. The first one is that you can pass them around multiple times to multiple students. You can do it in a big circle, each time adding more details or adding accessories, right? Like, this is the car that this monster would drive, or, this is the little hat and outfit it would wear if it was going to a grand ball or something like that. There's an infinite number of details that you could add, and so you could just keep going and going and going that way. Or you can name the monster. It could be a first, middle, and last name, just a first name. Or you could also do the name and the species of the monster, like Bob the Hippopotami or something like that. Name and species, or name and job, right? Like Robobber the Grave Robber or something like that. Just another variation where you start to incorporate a little bit of writing with draw a monster. You could also keep that writing going by writing some stats or some statistics about this monster. How old is the monster? What are its measurements, its weight and height and such? We can't necessarily gauge the scale by looking at your drawing. What are its hobbies? What does it like to do for fun? What is its purpose? What does it do in this world or in whatever world it inhabits? There's lots of questions that you could ask to find out more information about this monster that has been created. Or you can take it a step further and take those statistics, turning it into a story. You could do the origin story of the monster, or some adventure that it goes on, or someone that it haunts, or someone that it delights, or any number of things, right? I also sometimes use this to just practice particular grammar. So if we're working on prepositional phrases, for example, I might say, write a sentence about this monster using a prepositional phrase. Or write 10 sentences about this monster that include helping verbs, or anything like that. So it can be used to practice particular skills that you're working on in a way that's a little lighter, a little looser, a little more fun. There's lots of variations. I love playing it with students. They always get so excited about it, and they love sharing afterwards. It's a great activity that leads to collaboration, sharing, and developing community. Simple, awesome, how to draw a monster. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, as always, post them below. I'd love to see some monsters too. Post some of those. Or, like I said, if you have any other variations on this game, I would love to hear them. If you did enjoy this content, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps me out, and I really appreciate it. I look forward to teaching you something again very soon.